Adorable treasured fox, divine doctor mother overturning the heavens. Chapter 31. Not a very good first encounter Part 3. Dai Kang's eye surged with anger. Pressing his arms against the tree behind Bai Yan, he firmly corners the woman against it. Do we know each other? This question of his was made through extreme effort and control. A fox's sense of smell was very sensitive, therefore he can tell the scent of this woman had a lot of similarities to that person who raped himself. Bai Yan blinked and blinked in confusion. I'm someone that's known to have photographic memory. If I had seen you before, then it's impossible for me to forget. I fear I don't know you. Is it now? At that, Dai Kang deliberately lowered his voice into a whisper. Do I need to remind you of the incident from 6 years ago at Ancient Road? 6 years ago, Ancient Road. Startled, Bai Yan recalled that's about the same time when she happened to pick up the man that night. Remembering this, her heart instantly made a sinking sound inside. Raising her head up to meet that bloodthirsty stare, no matter how she thought about it, this pair of eyes looked exactly like what's in her memory. This, starting to panic in her heart, she didn't dare show it in front of the person. You have mistaken me for someone else. 6 years ago I was never anywhere near Ancient Road. Tightly pinching Bai Yan's chin, the man's big powerful hand forces her to face him head-on. Whether or not it's you, we will know once we have a try in bed. I still remember that taste very clearly. We'll know after a try in bed. Try in bed. These last 3 words causes Bai Yan's blood to gush right up to her head, making her to lose her composure completely. In one heavy stomp, she attacks the man's feet and angrily shouted, "You damn pervert." Making a low heavy grunt at the hit, his hands that were imprisoning Bai Yan loosened itself by reflect, thus allowing her to escape from under his grasp. Your Highness. A guard suddenly descends from the sky at this moment. Beads of sweat could clearly be seen on the newcomer's forehead because he never expected there to be a being daring enough to hit the Lord. Do you need subordinate here to bring the woman back? He hurries to wipe the cold sweat away, afraid his appearance would offend the man. No. Dai Kang's line of sight fell in the general direction of the escaping woman. Go investigate her background and identity. I want to know if she was ever at that place 6 years ago. Yes, Your Highness. Making a respectful bow, the guard salutes to show he understands the command. Oh yes, Your Highness. The guard timidly lowered his head. The princess is refusing to leave the estate right now and is making a fuss that she wants to see you. Wrinkling his forehead, Dai Kang's voice becomes a cold one. Didn't I say to throw her out? But, no matter what, that's the royal princess of the kingdom. Even if they got more balls, they, as servants, would never dare do such a thing as to throw a princess out the door. Sweeping his cold gaze across the man, Dai Kang makes a displeased grunt. Go to the penalty hall to receive your punishment. The cruel man's voice causes the guard to lose his balance. Shaking from the waist down, only horror could be found in the guard's face at this point. The penalty hall. That sort of place usually meant a location for minor disciplinary actions, but in His Highness's estate, it's a place where one might not come back out alive. Even if they do, it's a certainty the survivor would be crippled somewhere. Yes, subordinate willingly accepts the punishment. Trembling in his lip, the guard forces these words out with all his nerves rattled. In front of His Highness, no amount of begging will warrant mercy. In fact, it will only make the punishment even more severe. Adorable treasured fox, divine doctor mother overturning the heavens. Chapter 32. The delusionary woman who attempts to become the sovereign princess Part 1. Cold in his eyes, Dai Kang gave one glimpse at the guard under him before turning away for his residence. Ellipsis. Royal Kang Manor. In the courtyard, a girl currently sits on a stone stool, her fingers gently playing with her hair like a bored maiden on a fine summer day. Princess, please have some tea. A maidservant carefully walks over with a tray containing a tea set and some snacks. Casting a glance at the porcelain teacup before her, the girl's complexion instantly changed. So this is the type of material your Kang Manor uses to serve me, the princess of the kingdom. I clearly saw that jade cup inside the study room. Why did you not take it out to serve me? Am I not worthy even though I'm the princess? Bang! Slamming hard on the stone table, the girl's face flushed with anger as she shouted at the innocent maid, sending the poor servant down to her knees in fear. To answer princess, that jade cup is reserved exclusively for His Highness the Sovereign Prince. The master has a thing for neatness and doesn't like his stuff to be touched by others. You have a lot of guts. The girl suddenly gets up and slapped the maid in the face. On the ground as a result of the attack, the maid's delicate cheek quickly swelled into a purplish bruise as she made a pitiful face like someone suffering from injustice. I am the future sovereign princess of this Kang manor. That title can only belong to me. How dare you imply he will not like me? Over the years she had been apprenticing outside of the kingdom, leaving her unaware of Dai Kang's existence until a few days ago when she returned. Even if the man's cruel reputation was well established inside the kingdom, she still firmly fell in love with the man at first sight. To her, so long as she's the princess of the kingdom, the sovereign prince will have to give her some face. At this point the maid didn't have the courage to say another word. In fact, her body was trembling so hard that she wanted to squirm into a hole on the ground for escape. The future sovereign princess. Just as the sixth princess here thought the maidservant was trembling in fear at her, that's when the cold and indifferent voice caught her attention from behind. Why did I, the sovereign prince himself, didn't know you are the sovereign princess? Piercing in his words, the man's voice causes the princess to go stiff in her body. Nevertheless, she steels her nerve and timidly turns around to face that voice. Your Highness, I've waited so long for you here. Why did you not come back sooner? She intentionally changes her voice into that of a whimpering one like those only found between lovers. But, the sixth princess then pauses to give the maidservant a fierce glare, still kneeling there. The servants here are too presumptuous. They knew I am the princess and only brought out this second-rate cup for me to use. Dai Kang's view then slowly fell upon the teacup on the stone table. Picking it up, his fingers tightened and crumbles the cup in his grasp. In spite of the content being hot boiling water, it seems to make no difference to the man, as if the heat couldn't affect him whatsoever. You are not worthy to drink the tea from my place. The princess widened her eyes in dismay to the point even her lips were trembling from anger at the audacity of the man. He actually dares to humiliate me like that. Tossing the broken shards away, his palm then gently pressed against the table. In the next second, the entire stone snapped and collapsed into rubble. Clean this place up and mop the areas she touched with salt water. Be sure to do that 10 times over to sanitize the manor. Dai Kang's voice was like a clap of thunder, sending the princess's heart shaking with disbelief and shock. Adorable treasured fox, divine doctor mother overturning the heavens. Chapter 33, The Delusionary Woman Who Attempts to Become the Sovereign Princess Part 2. She screams in anger, Dai Kang. As a royal princess, who doesn't worship her? Now this man wants to mop even the floor where she's walked on. Preposterous. Throw her out. Dai Kang turns away after giving this order. Panicking at the departing figure, the princess abruptly made a grab for the man's arm. The result was a slight brush of the sleeve due to the man's movement. It wasn't even the full hand, but a small touch at the corner with her fingertips. In response, Dai Kang wrinkled his brow with a frown while all the servants in hindsight took to the floor, their heads low and shivering. Perhaps the sixth princess doesn't know what a frown on this man meant because she's not familiar with the Lord, but anyone who has followed Dai Kang for several years would know instantly it's the sign of someone's unlucky day. Dai Kang. Finding the man willing to stop for her, the sixth princess looks up only to be stunned by that handsome feature. I really like you. I'm sure you're aware of this too. You are but a sovereign prince, an entity that holds no legitimacy in the royal line. If you become my husband, that would make you true royalty. Ignoring the one-sided conversation, Dai Kang forcefully rips the sleeve in question and tosses it to the ground, flashing that snowy white skin to the sun's brilliance. Now she was truly too astonished for a proper word. Never in her mind did she expect even an arm to look so good. Now if she can be let out of the Kang manor using that arm, even if she has to sacrifice all her prestige and wealth, she's still willing. Just now, which finger of yours touched me? While the princess was still stuck in her dream, the man's frosty voice snaps her back into reality. To her, that icy tone was enough to make her shudder for some reason. Dai Kang. Watching the encroaching sovereign prince, she suddenly got a strong impulse to flee at this very moment because the aura radiating off of that body was simply too overwhelming. This man is exactly like the rumor says, too terrifying. For the first time in the sixth princess's life, a sense of regret had gripped her heart. If there's another chance, she would never attempt to provoke this man again. Which hand? Daikang presses in with another step. His face is expressionless while a bloodthirsty light emulates off of those irises. Seeing the princess refusing to answer his question, a spooky chuckle started to escape that captivating lip. If you don't say it, then I'll lop off both of them. Scared to the point where her legs had gone numb from fear, the sixth princess completely collapsed to the ground. Daikang, at the very least I am a royal princess of the kingdom. Are you not afraid of my father coming to make trouble for you? Even her heart was gripped with fear. She's not going to reveal any weakness before the man. Biting her lips, she presses her voice out. In response, Daikang only scoffed a laugh at the threat. Make trouble for me. That's if he has the courage to do it. Your Highness. The guard from the side knew better. He needs to step in now before the prince really did lop off the princess's hands. Just now I saw the princess use the right hand's index finger to brush you. His lord had a phobia for neatness and wouldn't let anyone touch him. For the sixth princess to do something so outrageous, that's akin to seeking her own death. Have her right index finger lopped off. Cold and cruel. If she takes a single step into the manor again, you are to take whichever leg that makes it past the door. Shuddering at the order, the guard wonders if he's done something wrong to warrant the sovereign prince giving him such a difficult errand. Adorable treasured fox, divine doctor mother overturning the heavens. Chapter 34. Two-Faced by Xuanhuan Part 1. Paralyzed on the ground, the sixth princess remains shivering like a pitiful weak being that she was. Against the tearful face, even the guards in the surrounding area couldn't help but be moved. Nevertheless, Daikang was expressionless, like nothing the girl did would change his mind. He's like the controller of life and death, a god that decides the fate of all others. Your Highness. Seeing the gloominess in the lord's face, the guard's heart instantly sank and knew there's no turning back. Shaky in his legs, he staggered over to the sixth princess's side. Forgive my offense then, princess. After saying this, the guard immediately drew his sword from the waist. Against the cold gleaming light of the blade, the princess's heart went from alarmed into a full panic. You dog, don't you dare touch me. In front of Daikang she would still cower in fear, but in front of a dog bestowed upon the sovereign prince by his royal father, there's no way she would back down. Princess, subordinate here don't want to do this either, but the consequences of not following his highness's order is a fate more terrifying than death. She wants to counterattack out of anger, but as soon as she tried, a cold and unsurmountable pressure causes her body to freeze like it's being crushed under a mountain. Just as the guard's blade was about to cut down at the girl's finger, the princess abruptly makes a loud horrendous scream and fainted away. In her lower part, a sour odor permeates the air as urine quickly stained her dress and the floor underneath. Now it's the guard's turn to freeze. Since the princess had already fainted away, he's wondering if he should still continue. At the thought, he turns around to seek approval from the lord. But as he did, the purplish figure with silver hair had already left, leaving nothing behind but a cool breeze attacking their unnerved selves. So what do we do now? The other guards anxiously asked after getting up. First throw princess out of here. Someone is bound to bring her back to the palace. Don't you think that's not very good? The girl is still a princess. We should at least send her back. The guard instructed by Daikang to chop off the finger casts a disdainful glance at his companion. Are you dumb? You want to offend his highness instead. Although the one to send us here is his majesty the king, but our master now is the sovereign prince. Besides, after today's incident with the sixth princess, there's no way we can return to that side. Perhaps, this is the reason the Lord had them do this today. The guard murmurs this to himself. A good guess, but in actual truth the guard was overthinking the matter. Daikang could care less if these guards would side with him. If a man doesn't even have the royal family in his eye, then why should he care what they thought of him? He just didn't want to dirty his hands. That's all. Ellipsis. Somewhere else at the same time on a bustling street. A certain Bai Xuanhuan was currently standing at a street corner, his arms still holding a baby white tiger. Little Rice, are you sure the bad woman's daughter will appear here? The bad woman mentioned by the boy would of course be Yu Rong, and the one they are waiting here for would be Bai Ji, the youngest daughter. I personally witnessed those people entering the restaurant. I suspect they will be out soon enough. Little master, how are you going to get even with that girl when you find her? You don't have to worry about that. Your only job is to ruthlessly scratch the girl when we find her. Waving his small little fist, Bai Xiakan wanted to portray a mighty and threatening appearance. Sadly, no matter how one looked at it, it's the super cute type that causes others to pinch his cheek in adoration. Rolling his tiger eyes, Little Rice attempts to protest at the demand, I am a white tiger, not a cat. Adorable treasured fox, divine doctor mother overturning the heavens. Chapter 35. Two-Faced Bai Xiakan Part 2. Have you ever seen a tiger scratch someone? Seriously, tigers bite. Bite okay. Here she comes. Bai Xiakan's eye instantly lit up. Immediately Yuan scrolling the painting in his hand, he matches the leaving girl's face with the one in the drawing. Grinning mischievously, good thing Grand Shifu knew mother wouldn't let me meddle in the Bai house and gave me their portraits ahead of time. With these I can easily recognize them. At that, he promptly grabbed some ashes and rubbed it against his face. No longer fair and adorable, his appearance now looks dirty and common. What are you doing? Little Rice went dark in the face over the boy's confusing maneuver. Of course, to make it so they don't recognize me. With his disguise done, Bai Xiakan swiftly rushes over and crashes into Bai Ji's figure that's just coming off of the stairs. Shocked by the abrupt contact, Bai Ji pretty much did it out of reflex to push away the dirty boy with her hands. However, before she can even touch the little fella with her fingers, the boy abruptly makes a full swing backwards and starts rolling down the steps. This of course dumbfounded Bai Ji, for she never even made contact, so why? Why would the boy fall backwards? Whaa! Bai Xiakan instantly broke out into a wailing cry, catching the attention of the pedestrians with his miserable voice. Meow. By this point Little Rice had already been ingrained with the act of being a cat, therefore the sound of meowing came so naturally to him. As a show of wanting to protect his owner, the baby tiger makes a swipe at the dumbfounded girl's face. By the time she managed to recompose herself, Bai Ji can only see the claws coming her way. In haste, she only manages to use her arms to resist. Ah! Tearing through those soft flesh, a sharp pain overtakes the girl as long streams of blood gushed out of the wound. What happened? Then at this moment, a man steps out of the restaurant after being alarmed by the ruckus. Seeing the weeping Bai Ji and the dirty-looking Bai Xiakan, the man's face turned very ugly. Your Highness. Bai Ji tearfully cries out to the crown prince like she's been terribly wronged. I don't know what happened, but as soon as I came out the doorway, this boy crashed into me and then fell backwards. Note. Sorry guys, but I couldn't change this part to make sense. Instead of Highness or Majesty, Chinese books like to use their actual title when calling out to royalty, which kinda messes up the next sentence here. Crown Prince. Still on the ground, the boy's teary eye started to move over to the man in question. So this is one that coupled up with Bai Ruo and threw away his mother, that bastard. At the same time, Mangongyi's gaze fell upon the dirty boy, his eyes sinking somewhat. If what Bai Ji says is true, then the boy's scheming heart is too deep. You're a bad guy. Jumping up from the ground, Bai Xiakan wipes away the tears from his face with those dirty fingers and makes a pitiful face. I was just hungry and wanted to go inside to eat. But when I did, you blocked me off and scolded me, saying I'm a dirty beggar and told me to scram because I'm blocking your road. Sniffling like he's actually crying, I'm just hungry, and I got money. Before Dad passed away he gave me a lot of money. Unwilling to jinx his own mother, the mischievous boy can only bring out his never-before-seen father for the act. You. Shivering from anger, Bai Ji attempts to rebuke the claim, you are lying. Although Bai Ji and her sister likes to bully Bai Yan at home, but while outside, their facades are that of an angelic sister that cares for others. This was also partly related to Yu Rong's teaching. Adorable treasured fox, divine doctor mother overturning the heavens. Chapter 36. Two-Faced Bai Xiakan Part 3. What a pity. Just now none had noticed the scene in front of the restaurant. Of course, this meant there couldn't be any witnesses able to prove Bai Ji's innocence. Your Highness, you mustn't believe his words. He framed me. Bai Ji hurries to explain herself to the crown prince. I am not saying nonsense. Bai Xiakan may be dirty and poor-looking right now, but that doesn't hinder his teary appearance from winning the hearts of the pedestrians. If you didn't push me, then Little Rice wouldn't have scratched you. Meow tilde, knocking up his head with pride, Little Rice demonstrates his baby claws in the air as a form of threat. By this point the number of guests gathering outside the restaurant was growing more and more, their accusing fingers making Bai Ji feeling wrong to the point of wanting to cry. Bai Ji, I am too disappointed in you. Nangong Yi's voice became colder. This little boy held no grudge against you, so why should he set you up? Besides, he's but a young child, no more than 5 or 6. How can you claim a small kid like that would be so scheming? Going ghostly white, Bai Ji tightly purses her lips as she shuddered at the reprimanding words. You daughters of the Bai house are truly inferior to Bai Ruo. First is Bai Yan, who eloped with a man, then you who would not even spare a young child. Due to the man only paying attention to his act of scolding the girl, Nangong Yi didn't realize the sudden change in the boy's face. No longer teary or pitiful, a burst of anger filled those baby eyes for a minute. Fortunately, Bai Xiakan could still remember his purpose today. Lowering his head, he manages to hide his true emotions by giving off the impression that he's crying to the crowd. Your Highness, you must let me explain first. Bai Ji urgently wants to grab onto the man's arm, only to be mercilessly flung away with a swipe. Enough. Nangong Yi roared. Lord Bai originally wanted to ask me to help you become the sovereign princess, claiming you are clever and sensible. But who would have guessed you would stoop so low as to embarrass a child like that? Father will never allow a character like you in the palace garden to promote trouble. After saying this, the crown prince didn't even bother to look at Bai Ji anymore. Walking down the staircase, his face made an obvious frown at the sight of the dirty boy. The child is indeed hateful for being so dirty. No wonder Bai Ji would behave like that. Just that royalty must maintain our images in the public. If I allow a girl like that into the family, it will no doubt ruin our reputation and incur father's ire. Then at this moment Nangong Yi recalled his own child with Bai Ruo. From her unhappy frown, his face returned to that of pride and happiness. As expected, there is no child in this world who can compare with my own son. This little beggar is so dirty and hateful, what a world of a difference. Watching the departing back in front of her, Bai Ji only had these 2 words emerge in her head, it's over. It's all this little beggar's fault. Perhaps it's due to anger rushing to her head, but Bai Ji's expression became frightfully scary. I will strangle you. Seeing the girl that had lost ration rushing up to him, a flash of cunningness sparks in Bai Xiakan's eye as he deliberately fell to one side, causing Bai Ji's hand to miss by a hair's width. The audience of course assumed this was the boy getting lucky and didn't think much of it. Meow. Little Rice was now truly angered. He's fully aware of his little master's ability and that someone like Bai Ji can't possibly hurt him. However, that doesn't mean he will allow any random person to harm Bai Xiakan in front of his tiger self. Adorable treasured fox, divine Dr. Mother overturning the heavens. Chapter 37. Two-faced Bai Xiakan Part 4. Having her neck suddenly caught by Little Rice's claw, Bai Ji lets out a frantic scream as tears rolled down the corner of her eyes. You damn cat, I'm going to skin you alive. Showing despise in his tiger eyes, Little Rice had already dodged away once the girl manages to pounce at him. Humph, a little human thinks she can skin a descendant of the white tiger race. When I reach adulthood, I can even drown you alive just by spitting. Seeing how much fun his little furry friend was having, Bai Xiakan giggles with delight as a cunning light flashes in his eye. Therefore, when he noticed someone had ran in front of him in a protective posture, he didn't hesitate to dash over to hug the newcomer's thigh. Woo! Please save me. That bad woman said she wants to strangle me. The person in front had obviously stopped, and his voice ever so cold and indifferent, making Bai Ji becoming crazier than before. Bai Ji, you not only bully the weak, you are also picking on the small Mao. You think this is the Bai house where anyone can be bullied by you? Gnashing her teeth in frustrated anger, Bai Ji screams, Bai Xiao, are you blind or what? Which one of your eyes saw me bullying that kid? It's clearly this cat that's bullying me. Bai Xiao. This name instantly causes Bai Xiakan to freeze like a statue. Raising his little head, the boy looks up for the first time at the teenager in question. Uncle. Tears flowed like a waterfall out of the mischievous boy's eye. It's uncle. This man is his uncle. Faintly wrinkling his brow, Baisio then looks down at the little boy that's still clinging onto his thigh. Realizing what he just said by mistake, Bai Xiakan hurriedly wipes away the tears. You look a lot like my uncle, so I. Looking at the poor little boy in front of him, Bai Chia's heart suddenly tensed up in pain. Perhaps if sister's child was still alive, it would also be the same age as this little guy. But this Bai Ji, she would have even spare a child like this. Turning his mouth into a smearing smile, I only saw you bullying this kid just now. If not for the cat here, he would no doubt be injured by you. The way you act in the Bai house is already bad enough, but now you wouldn't even spare a young child. How low can you get? As soon as he finished his sentence, Bai Sio promptly pulled the little boy behind himself for protection. With me here today, you can forget about touching a single hair on this child. Bai Sio. Bai Ji first sorted through her messy hair before making a fierce glare at her stepbrother. You just wait, I will definitely tell father that you would rather help an outsider than to help me. Bai Ji may be wet behind her ears still, but she knew enough that by staying in this place nothing good will come of it. After leaving behind this threatening statement, she swiftly left the area. Undeniably, after Bai Xiakan's deliberate smearing, Bai Ji's entire image in which she built over the years had been completely destroyed today. Ellipsis. After Bai Yan escaped from Dai Kang's grasp, she immediately wanted to find her son because in her heart, there's a strong urge telling her that man's likely the very same individual in which she used to alleviate the drug that day from 6 years ago. This also meant the man was likely Bai Xiakan's father. As a first response, the only thing she wanted to do now was to find her son and hide the boy before the man locates them both. However, when Bai Yan manages to run halfway to the mansion that she prepared, she quickly took notice to her son with that dirty look get up outside the restaurant. But that's not the main form of attraction for her focus, it's whoever Bai Xiakan was clinging onto. Giving the fleeting back of Bai Ji a glance, then back at the mischievous face of her son, Bai Yan's face instantly went dark. Adorable treasured fox, divine doctor mother overturning the heavens. Chapter 38. Bai Xiao's Shock Part 1. Bai Xiakan apparently didn't notice his mother's presence on the street. Uncle, I like you. Why don't you come home with me? His small hands continuing to warp itself around the teen's leg, refusing to let go. Looking at the cute little thing clinging onto him, Bai Xiao's gaze gradually softened. That soft cheek, that hint of milky aroma of a baby, combined together makes the child look like a small little steam bun that others would be tempted to take a bite out of. Where is your home? I'll send you back. Bai Xiao's gently rubs the little head, his smile ever so warm because he had liked the little bun at first sight. Happy inside, Bai Xiakan wanted to tell the truth this instant when he abruptly noticed the dark-faced Bai Yan coming over. Jumping from shock, even his small little hands had lost their grip as he retreated in haste. I'm finished. Why is Mum here? Sis, what are you doing here? A genuine smile emerges from Bai Xiao's face. Still dark and gloomy in her face, Bai Yan first casts a glance at the dirty boy, then shifted it back to her brother. Take this little thing and follow me. This. Bai Sio was obviously stunned by the demand. Scratching his head in confusion, sister, wouldn't this count as child trafficking? The idea doesn't seem to be very good. Ignoring the question, Bai Yan simply turns away and walked ahead. Though Bai Sio was hesitant at first, he eventually relented and went ahead to pick up the little meat bun. Sorry little guy. Although I like you very much, but my sister is the biggest so I can only offend you this time. Originally he thought that Bai Xiakan would struggle and cry out from his touch, but the behavior of the boy utterly shocked him. Quiet and obedient, the little fella just sat there in his arms while the kitten from earlier followed next to them. Ellipsis. Inside the courtyard. Entering from following his sister's lead, Bai Sio was full of curiosity in his eyes at the new environment. Just as he wanted to ask whose place was this, the woman in front had stopped and took a seat on a stone stool there. Do you know you're wrong? Crossing her legs, she starts tapping her right fingers on the table like the mistress of the house. Now it was Bai Xiao's turn to be dumbfounded. What mistake did I do today to make sis so angry? Just as he was busy trying to think long and hard on what he did wrong, Xuanhuan, that was still hanging his small little head on his uncle's shoulder, suddenly jumped off. Then, as if only natural, the little meat bun went ahead and grabbed for the baby tiger on the side, his face angry as he asked, "Little Rice, did you do something wrong again and made mother upset? Hurry and confess. Leniency will be given if you tell the truth." Poor little Rice. Completely caught off guard by the questioning, the only thing running through his tiger brain now was this: who can be more shameless than his little owner here? As expected, only a fox can be this insidious and cunning. "Mother." Beaming a brilliant smile, the little guy makes a pleading face with his eyes and said, "Little Rice admits his wrong, so please forgive him." "Mum." A total mess inside, Bai Xiao's eye was full of astonishment at the news. Trembling, he looks to Bai Yan for confirmation. This little bun is his nephew. Bai Xuanhuan, slamming the stone table, "Did you forget everything I said to you before?" "Mum, it's little Rice who encouraged me to go. Even Bai Ji was scratched by him, it's really not me. Why did he bring along the baby tiger? Of course it's to have his little furry friend take the fall for himself. No matter what, he can't possibly admit to be the instigator of the idea." Adorable treasured fox, divine Dr. Mother overturning the heavens. Chapter 39. Bai Xiao's Shock Part 2. Meow. Little Rice protests with his voice. If he had known earlier the little owner would do this, he definitely wouldn't have followed along. "Say it. Tell me what's going on. I want to hear the truth." Bai Yan frowns. Although she didn't say she had forgiven the two troublemakers, but the tone definitely sounded less harsh. "It's because those people bullied you all those years ago." Bai Xuanhuan throws himself into Bai Yan's bosom, his eyes tearful and heartwarming. "Mother, I didn't deliberately disobey you, I only wanted to get even with those people for you." Hearing this explanation, she can only exhale a sigh of gratification at this son of hers. To have such a clever and sensible son, what more can a mother ask for? And the boy lifts his head to meet hers. "That Bai Ji said she wants to strangle me." "What?" Jolting up from the stone stool, Bai Yan immediately slammed the table with her hand and destroyed it until it's nothing but rubble. Watching this from the side, Bai Xiao was left completely stunned for words. First looking at the crumbling mess on the floor, then back at the enraged face of his sister's face, he couldn't resist making a heavy gulp at that moment. When did sister get so strong? A strong urge tells him Bai Ji had just made a big mistake this time. "I can still slowly get even with Bai Ji for bullying me back then, but now she dares threaten to strangle my son." Her face still boiling. "Brother, go take trip to the land house and tell our grandfather he must invite the Bai house to the banquet in the coming day. My son isn't someone that can easily be bullied." Nodding in confusion, Bai Xiao had obviously been overly shocked by that palm strike just now. After saying this, Bai Yan forcibly suppresses her anger and lifts the little treasure up from her arms. "Did that Bai Ji hurt you anywhere?" "Don't worry," the boy pats his chest in assurance, "I'm very capable. Even if there's 10 Bai Ji, they can't beat me." Bai Yan knows her son was spouting the truth. In fact, she can guess the instigator of today's scuffle likely fell on this little troublemaker. However, that doesn't excuse that girl from bullying her son. "Mother, can I go to my grandfather's place?" Looking at those twinkling eyes, Bai Yan was ready to give in and agree until the dangerous and dominating face of that man reappeared in her head. "Not right now. In the future, I will bring you to see your grandfather." The man had a high probability of being her son's father. As such, she can't allow her son to appear in public just yet. "Oh." Bai Xuanhuan bites his lip and depressingly lowered that head of his. Watching the pitiful face of her son there, even her heart was aching in pain. However, no matter the strong impose to say yes, she resists and continues to keep her stance. "I promise you I will take you to see your grandparents very soon. But first, go wash your face for now, okay?" "Okay." Quickly reverting back to his cheeky little self, Bai Xuanhuan releases the most friendly smile a child can make. Turning to Little Rice, he makes a grab at that tail. "Look at you, all dirty and stuff. A good kitty needs to be clean, otherwise mother will be angry at us." "Meow. I don't want a bath, absolutely not." Little Rice, stabbing his fists against his waist, Bai Xuanhuan puffs his cute little cheeks in an unhappy fashion. Not yielding, little rice makes a jump for the nearby tree and proudly makes a humph sound, refusing to come down again. Looking at the baby tiger there on the branch, Bai Yan suddenly got a new idea. Smiling, "Son, go wash your face first. I have other things I need little rice to do for me first." Adorable treasured fox, divine doctor mother overturning the heavens. Chapter 40, Dinner Banquet Part 1. On top of the ancient tree outside the courtyard, a skinny man remains hidden behind the branches. Can it be I've been found? Realizing the sweeping gaze coming his way was from Bai Yan, the man merely skipped a beat. "Sister," Bai Xiao was just ready to ask about the child when Bai Yan halted him with her fingers. "Little rice, go finish off that tailing fly there." Meow. Responding quickly, the baby tiger rushes out of the yard. Lapsing out for a good moment, Bai Xiao was eventually knocked back to his senses when a heart-wrenching cry came from the outside. "Ah!" Falling out from the ancient tree, a thin figure mercilessly slammed into the ground with his throat swiped open. Blood flowed profusely out of that wound with no signs of stopping. Ughh Blair. Gracefully stepping through the doorway, the little white tiger unhappily spits out a mouthful of blood and saliva at the floor. Wiping away the excess, little rice begins to murmur his complaint. "This human's blood is so disgusting. I still like mistress's braised pork more." Originally Bai Xiao was already speechless from little rice's strength, but upon hearing the human words coming out of that tiger mouth, he nearly fainted away from being overwhelmed. "Sister, he's ready to cry now. Why does this kitty know how to speak?" Glancing at the baby tiger, a mischievous smile appears on Bai Yan's face. "It's because he is what you call a demon beast." In front of her brother, Bai Yan didn't bother to hide the truth because it was just a matter of time when this comes out. But there aren't many demon beasts out there that could speak human tongue, let alone be domesticated. In truth, the majority of the demon beasts out there are very noble. They can help their human companions fight and do plenty of other jobs. Unfortunately, they are also very difficult to domesticate, especially the ones that can speak. Don't you feel surprised? Bai Yan shrugged her shoulders, smiling the entire time. Surprise? If my heart wasn't so strong, I would have been scared to death right now. First tell me, is that child really your son? Looking at her brother's anticipating eyes, she nodded. His name is Bai Xiaokan. He's my son, but just to make this clear, I don't want anyone to know about his existence just yet. Now it made sense to him as to why the child would be so against Bai Ji at the restaurant. It's because of his sister here. Sister, I understand, I will protect him along with you. By now Bai Xiaokan had finished washing his face and returned with his new cuddly face. It's getting late, I should first go back. Seeing his nephew returning in the gradually darkening sky, he knew it's time. You went against Bai Ji today, so it's a certainty that girl would tell on you. In my opinion, it's better you don't go back. Bai Yan frowns, worried for her brother's safety. Shaking his head, the boy refused the request. I am that man's only son. The most they can do to me is to scold or not let me have a meal. Sister, the Bai house belongs to me and you. I won't let you wrong or her daughters steal our things. Opening her mouth, Bai Yan wanted to say more to persuade the boy but found herself unable to utter anything. No matter what happens, you can come here to find me. Over here, no one can harm you. Okay, smiling, he gently rubs at the little troublemaker's head. Xiaokan, uncle here will definitely come see you tomorrow.